They told me, son, you're special. You were born to do great things. You know what? They were right.
Hey guys, welcome in. If you're in this review, you've probably played Bioshock before. Maybe you haven't. If you have, I'm telling you now, you're lying to yourself. It's not as good as you remember. And if you haven't, it's probably still worth playing. Let's have a chat about it, starting off with gameplay as always. Bioshock revolutionized shooters, so fresh and different. You've heard it all before, and is it? Look, maybe when it first came out. I only played the game for the first time recently, and even if I give it, a bit of space for the fact that it is an older game, I think even back then, it stepped a foot wrong in a lot of areas. Not to say it didn't do it epically in others. For me, Bioshock's a bit hard. There's almost like there's two games. The first 2/3 of the game, and then the last third of the game. And you're going to see that through all 4 points of this review. Let's start with some of the good though. I'll take that. What is that? Checkpoint? Why is it? Oh! Alright, let's start off with the most obvious one. It's the plasmids. They're awesome. I haven't seen much in gaming before or since Bioshock utilized mixed combat systems. And I would describe it as a mixed combat system. We've got shooters, we've got magic. This is a blend of the two. Probably the best example I can think of is something like Mass Effect with its biotics, and how you can sort of use them to solve your problems or use your direct combat, such as weapons. Absolutely awesome in Bioshock. However, this is a double-edged sword. It really is, you get what you put in type of situation. I've seen some really awesome combinations that are useless. They look cool, fun, don't do anything though. And you'll get by just fine with pretty much just shock. Yeah, every now and again the other ones can come in handy, but shock's your main one. Whereas the other ones and the combinations of them are just flashy, but you're just adding extra steps and resource costs to the same ultimate outcome. It's a bit disappointing that there wasn't a little bit more utility built into the plasmid system. Older game, so I'm willing to sort of forgive it for it, but there's a lot of cool tools that just don't really have a lot of unique uses. Let you do you. Burning, 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 burning! Stopped burning. No, I want to hit him, The other quick rounds are going to be things like unique hacking mechanic, but definitely gets overused way too much. Melee is pretty redundant, like, it's just not good. Really disappointed with the style of game it is, that there's no real strong stealth system in it. Like, it sort of tries, at least initially, to go for this sort of the horror shooter vibe, but yeah, there's no like attack from stealth bonus. There doesn't even seem to be a really functioning stealth system at all, except for the basics. Just a little bit disappointing, because I think that could have been really well utilized inside this space, especially with the difficulty of the game in terms of gameplay's perspective. Having the option to stealth through some sections would have been very cool and helped increase that tension. Particular type of... Oh! Do I only get... Oh! So you can't buy gun upgrades. It's a one-time use type thing. Really cool gameplay feature is that there's limited upgrades. Being able to only upgrade so many components of your weapons and forcing you to sort of prioritize one or the other is a really cool feature, and it makes the player feel like they've, got a fear of missing out. You've got to actually think about the decisions you're making, not just, oh, I'll get this later, which really only adds to how compelling and immersive the gameplay experience is. Really cool touch. Armor piercing rounds when we do have them. But we always end up back in the shotgun because we never have armor piercing rounds.
But there will certainly be side effects.
This was a bit of a unique situation in the game. At one point your plasmids go nuts, and it's basically plasmid RNG. You keep getting all these different ones cycling through. It was just really cool to mix up, especially this deep into the game, mix up sort of what was happening, just to keep it fresh and interesting. And I really enjoyed sort of having to deal with that new and unique problem inside of this gameplay issue, and I thought that was a good touch. Used this before. So... Ah! And this is where we get into that 2-1 issue again. This gets broken up a little bit later, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but long hallway defense mission with the little sister. We also had a ridiculous overuse of the power of 3. You know, you need 3 of everything for this Big Daddy creation element at the end of the game. And all it really felt like was padding and filler. Okay, and the final boss fight. I'm going to talk about this in length in a different section, but interesting. To put it simply, it just was bland. There didn't feel like there was any gravity or payoff or momentum. And I'm now talking about other elements that are not gameplay. Okay. Okay, he moves. The last big one was the last boss fight. I literally have re-recorded this 3 times because I ended up talking about other issues with the last boss fight. From purely a gameplay perspective, it was very bland. It was sort of like just versing a Big Daddy with more health. Yeah, you throw some plasmids back at you, but it was a very dumb enemy. Bioshock has done very, very well in creating really smart enemies. You set one on fire, it'll look for a puddle to jump in. Like, they seem to sort of interact with you quite well. The boss just runs mindlessly at you and throws plasmids. You're not even a threat!
That is an Avengers level threat.
It's just a very bland fight. And it doesn't have sort of that impact at all that the Big Daddies do. It's just bland. Which is really unfortunate, considering, again, how well they're done with so many of the other enemies all the way up through to this point. Rounds, I reckon. Ooh, okay, that hurt a little. A little bit, that's okay. Right. Oh! Oh!
That's the Big Daddy.
Daddy, chill.
Okay, that was pretty hot.
Before we leave to the gameplay conclusion, I have to talk about the Big Daddies from a gameplay perspective. This was brought up by a member of the community as well when we were doing the review process. They are just so fun. They are such a change from all the other enemies in the game, and you will never forget the first time you go head to head with the Big Daddy. They definitely do invite more of a thought-based approach, and especially when you're playing on the hardest difficulty like we do. Going toe-to-toe with one usually isn't going to pan out well for you. It's about using your environment, all the tools at your disposal to try and outplay this behemoth mini-boss. Is it dead? No! He's still not dead! I thought that was it dying! Oh.
Finally.
Oh my god. Right, so this is where it comes to the conclusion of the gameplay. I wanted to move through gameplay quite quickly because I think a lot of what I want to discuss about Bioshock is a bit further on, and with good reason. You'll see in a minute. Gameplay, I scored a little bit harsh, 40. The community, 70. Brings us up to about an average of 55. Neither me or the community are wrong, and this is how you got such a diverse outcome. I think the community's remembered a little bit more of those positive moments, but the last third of the game was very fresh for me. To try and keep myself unbiased though, we've got our scoring system. So whenever something happens, we put the score in. And you would have seen that in the VODs leading up to this review. That's where I pull my scores from. And if you were watching those VODs from start to finish, you'll see we got up to a peak of about 70 from memory, or the mid-60s. And we've ended up back at the 40s from that last third of the game. Gameplay-wise, that last third of the game absolutely hinders the score. The boss fight, the escort mission, these things that we've talked about that were all condensed to that last third of the game. It's just a very disappointing way to wrap up what up until effectively the big reveal was amazing. Like, there was very little negative to bring to the table. Some nitpicking, but nothing heavy up until that point. So it's very disappointing to give it such a low score when it was such a positive experience. And don't take it badly. I still found this game insanely fun to play, and from a gameplay perspective, I'd recommend it in a heartbeat if you'd never played it before, even today. It's just good, and I don't think that's going to change. I think this is a timeless classic. Could be better in some areas, but you're not going to not enjoy it. I can almost guarantee it. Easiest money of my life!
Uy, teka lang! Teka lang, iba to! Teka lang, Sir Chief! Sir Chief! Huwag kayong mainis! Mahal ang patis! Parating! Oh! Oh Chip! Panating victory! 10K tayo ako times 3! 30K! Easiest money of my life!
Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow?
Actually makes me horrified. Look at his hand. I still haven't got to use it yet. I've wanted to test it this whole time, but every time there's something I can test it on, I end up just dead before it changes. Here you go. There's bees in my eyes! We can be pretty succinct with graphics and sound. Across the board, very solid. The audio around, just the general environment as you move through, how the Big Daddies sound, how the weapons sound, they're all very, very solid. The standouts, though, is where I want to pay a bit of my attention to, and that's really the plasmids. How they look, feel, operate, the first time you interact with them, the first time you see them in the environment. Really big standouts are things like the Winter Blast and the Insect Swarm. The amount of effort that's clearly gone into those is unreal. As if bad guys are just respawning left, right, and center. And I said I was going to be really quick on graphics and sound, and I meant it. It's good. It's I gave it a 69. The community gave it a 75. Gives us an average of 72. Really high. I think there was no real big detractors. There was just, a lot of missed opportunities that would have really pushed it into those high 80s and 90s that just didn't appear here. And I think the biggest issue with that is just its age. And its age does show even in the remaster. Really, really high quality in terms of graphics and visuals. There's some amazing, amazing moments, but a lot of that I've packed into immersion and impact and game specific, so I have chosen not to talk about here because that would do a disservice to what this game really brings to the table. And that's those next two categories. Let's get into them. He's pretty low. If we stun him and pop him point blank with the shotgun, we will die.
No, says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers.
No deaths. Oh. Look, I'm actually trying to get past you because I don't want to fight you in here. I want to fight you out there. So I'm just gonna, let you pass.
Move along. Move along.
So for immersion and impact, I kind of want to focus on the big ones. Big Daddies definitely are a massive standout. Every single Big Daddy fight is just so full of tension. You know that these things are just behemoths. You know you don't want to mess with them, but you gotta do it. And it's just such an amazing set piece every single time you do it. The general ambience in Bioshock's also very solid. We've spoken about this before in the other categories, but the sounds, the audio, the claustrophobic environment that most of the levels give you is just so telling of the city and its condition. And it just leaves you completely absorbed. There's a couple bits that sort of hurt it, where they feel like they wanted to use different areas and they just wanted to do them, so they just made it work. I kind of wish that they did just stick to that theme and feel of this claustrophobic environment for most of the places. Some of the ones that they do just sort of make larger areas just feel a bit awkward and forced, which is a bit unfortunate, but they make up such a small minority of the game that it's a nitpick.
Fight!
I think we're gonna get this time. Yes, we are! No, we're not. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Confidence is king. Okay, not dead. Okay. Oh. Yeah, he killed me like 6 times. Be very thankful that I am a forgiving God.
Am I not merciful?
just generally the AI. The Big Daddy AI is a standout. The general AI is good, but I think I've included that clip from before where I'm sort of like toying with the Big Daddy and seeing like what he does as I move closer to the little sister. The Big Daddies feel alive. Generic enemies, meh, but the Big Daddies feel alive. I cannot celebrate the Big Daddy enough in this game, in every category. It just carries the game. What do you want from me? They did well. I'm praising it.
That's better.
Sander?
Atlas Ryan. Atlas Ryan. Da 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 da. Time-wise, you could get something decent on the radio.
Alright, another amazing standout. Sander Cohen. He absolutely nailed what I expected to find in Rapture. You've got a city with no limits, where all the confines of morality have been removed. And he is the character, even more than Andrew Ryan, he is the character that really takes advantage of this. Like, he's doing artwork with people. Moral? No. But, you know, art is subjective. So, good on him for having a crack. It made the world feel alive. It's what I would expect to see in this absolutely horrible environment. No one would sensibly want to live there except for crazy people, and god damn is he crazy.
No need to thank me for jamming the transmissions of those boors, Atlas and Ryan. Let them have their squabble. The artist, yes, the artist knows there is richer earth to till.
One eternity later.
But, oh. That was just sick.
Is accomplished. Let me see
What separates a man from a slave? Money? Power? No. A man chooses. A slave obeys. You think you have memories. A farm. A family. An airplane. A crash.
And then this gets us to that final point. Yes, the big reveal where you finally have the encounter with Andrew Ryan himself and you learn what's going on and why. And in terms of like a set story piece, an impact moment, probably one of the best in gaming, even if you know it's coming. I was speaking to someone that actually like had the whole game explained to him, but had never played it. Then he's gone and played it. And he turned around and was like, you know what, even when I knew and understood, like to see it for the first time, it's like, it's just an amazing impact moment. Can't sing that enough praises.
A slave obeys. Come in.
Hello? Can I shoot you?
Stop, would you kindly? Would you kindly? Powerful phrase. Familiar phrase.
Would you kindly? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find it? Would you kindly find it? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
Brings us to the conclusion for Immersion of Impact. As you can see, I gave it 67, the community gave it 80. That gives us an average of 73.5. And it's another 2-1 problem. My god, is the first 2/3 of the game so immersive, so impactful. I have nothing, almost nothing, but good things to say. I wish the game ended at the reveal. Maybe Andrew Ryan kills you instead, or Fontaine wins, whatever. Something. Because from that point forward, the game just sort of dropped the ball. And that's what hurt my score. And I'm pretty confident that most of the community scores are really relying on their fond memories of the game that I could almost guarantee come from the first 2/3. Especially the final encounters and the final runs with Fontaine. We've swapped out this complex and interesting character in Andrew Ryan, who is just not a black and white bad villain for your generic 1930s mobster. I just did it because I can and I want power. Okay, cool, I get that, but like, why? It's literally just an empty city now. Like, power over what? And yeah, there's lots of story elements. Oh, the atom, the this, the that. Yeah, but come on. Like, if you've given us such diverse and deep and interesting characters, finish it strong. The reality is, he's just a boring character. Is what it is.
Nice work by you all.
Got a good evil laugh. Get along. Scotty! 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 Take it down a notch. It's creeping a bit.
Instead, I chose something different. I chose rapture.
What is that? Game specifics is a little bit of a harder one, because Bioshock doesn't know what it wants to be. Some people compare it to a horror shooter, some people call it just a straight action shooter, some people call it an RPG with a shooter with RPG elements. There's so many different things that have been packed into this package, and most of them work together quite well. I think the biggest issue with the package that they built is the horror elements. You can tell, especially at the start of the game, that they wanted to have a thick, heavy atmosphere. And the game accomplishes that quite well. What it doesn't do is execute on those elements in a way that sort of builds the tension to a point and then releases it. There's no real horror payoff. It's really an action game that has elements of horror, elements of RPG, elements of other things. I think it comes together quite well. I think it's almost its own little thing. But it does hurt it when it comes to making it any one specific game. The obsession with hitting me from behind. Ow, ow, ow. Oh, there's a body chamber in here, so we could literally stand next to this turret and have a good day. Like, I'm not even going to waste a health pack if I'm going to respawn right here. Something that really hurt game specific, I think, and we touched on it briefly in gameplay, is death having no consequence. So we played on the hardest setting, and there was a period about, hard to say, I think we were about halfway through maybe, and we realized that there was actually zero consequence to death. That we could literally just meat grind our way through the more difficult encounters, and that's what we did. I'd die, respawn at the checkpoint, something would have half health, I'd run at it, hit it a couple times, die, rinse and repeat. And once you realize that, it really hurts a lot of what the other things the game's trying to accomplish. Like, it removes all tension, it removes all stress of failure, it removes all desire to achieve excellence. You just keep running in. And that really, really just hurts the game across the board. And I chose to speak about that here. Let's go get some blood. And again with gameplay and every other category, the last act, it just hurts so much that they built up in this game specific element. Like, one of the game's initial set points, and you've seen it in each of the introduction points for each of the categories. We're using one of the trailer footages for the remaster. And he talks about how he disagrees with capitalism, communism, all these other ideologies. He tries to build this new place. You've got this action horror-esque game where it's used as a vehicle, discuss these ideas and explore the concept of this new way to live that's been built in this fictional universe. And it never really gets executed on. That's it. Cool ideas. They don't get utilized. There's definitely, and I have seen a lot of discussion about this. If you've read certain bits of literature, there's a lot of parallels, but I think it's more conceptual than practical. Really, when you get down into the game and you explore what the game is offering, it is a big missed opportunity. And I think a lot of that would have really come to light in the city had it still been alive versus what state the city is in when we find it. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't even think it's a missed opportunity. I just think it's a discussion point. And again, it just muddles the game and it makes it a little bit harder to nail that sort of specific elements that it's going for. still absolute behemoth in the industry even to this day, but I think there's so much still left unexplored in what Rapture was and what it could be, and I would really love to see some media take advantage of that gap and fill it, because I think it would be an amazing story to be told in that space. Oh, that's a big okay, yeah. I thought it might have been, but it looked like it was like repairing something or stuck. So in conclusion, again, I was a little bit harsher than the community. I gave it a 76. The community gave it a 90, which gives us an average score of about 83. The biggest hit was just that last third. Again, this game is phenomenal, especially the first 2/3. I just cannot give that last third of the game, that last act, enough of a hard time. It really breaks the immersion, it breaks the impact, it breaks the game-specific sort of experience that you've had, and it just becomes a generic op shooter. And it's just a very unfortunate way to wrap up what's an amazing game. I need her soul. Let's go, little flying guy. Alright, so this gets us to the conclusion. As you can see, I was a bit harsh on this one. 63. The community, a little bit kinder. 78.75. We'll get technical here. Which gives us a grand total of 71. I'll round up for you. Is this game above average? Definitely. Is this game worth playing today if you've never played it before? 100%. If you like shooters in any capacity, you're going to enjoy this game. From easy through to hard. So where did we go wrong? Feels like the score should be higher, right? Is it age? Time's a factor. It's dated as it's grown, and you can sort of see that in a lot of different components as you play through the game, but it's not fatal. I mean, honestly, it's aged quite well, especially compared to a lot of the older games that I have played. So why is it so low? It's the third act, and I can't harp on that enough. I genuinely believe that the game should have ended after the reveal. I don't know how you did it. Whether the main character dies, spoiler, and then like, booze, you build up a whole new narrative for a second, or you take on it, and Call of Duty's done this. Can't believe I'm reaching out to Call of Duty for like narrative points. But your main character dies, and you complete the story as another character's perspective. Whether you do something like that, whether they just made Fontaine a more diverse and dynamic character than just a mob boss. People are like, oh, there's more to him than that, but honestly, like, when you boil it down and you think about your main interactions with him, it's just mob bossy. I mean, even his motivations for killing you directly are pretty flimsy. He's just like, I'm gonna kill you because I can. It's really what it is. I want to run the city, so I'm just trying to get out. I've been trying to get out since the start of the game. So, it's just, I think these sorts of things, and like, oh my god, and yeah, I can't even talk about that boss fight enough. It's just, And this is probably the other thing that really comes in. When you think about those big set piece moments, you go, yes, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. What does this game really stand out for? What carries this game and separates it from everything else? I don't think it's the story. People talk about the story a lot, and I think it's solid, especially up to the reveal. Honestly, it's the big daddies for me. I genuinely believe they carry this game like nothing else. We've seen big enemies in games before, but I struggle to think of an equivalent enemy in any game that I've played. Not just shooters, this is including RPGs, where you can see it so many times, but it still has that same impact of, it's still the big daddy, and it's still cool and fun and exciting and dynamic, and the way you fight it is compelling. Like, I never was bored in a big daddy fight. I got frustrated by one or two, but usually it was separate circumstances, not really the big daddy itself. And I think if you had removed the big daddy from Bioshock, yeah, it's got plasmids, it's got a story, but I don't think this game would have survived as well as it has. It had such a big popular pop culture following. big following. And I don't think the game would be as timeless as it is. So, you know, your nostalgia is lying. There's a lot of Dead Space, there's a lot of really weak elements that are around the game, but it's still a good game. And I'd recommend it in a heartbeat even today, regardless of its age. What did you think? Are you gonna play the game? Have you played it before? Do you completely disagree with me? Or do you think I'm on the money? Why don't you let me know in the comments? Otherwise, I'll see you guys on Twitch, or you can check out our latest video here. Is it here? Somewhere. See you guys in the next one.